Welcome to the Pink Dress Effect podcast with Shannon
And Kim.
We are here today to talk about boundaries, kind of the dynamics of them and how to set them, and why saying no is so hard.
Yeah.
Why is that? And why do you think we struggle with setting them, Kim?
I don't know.
It's hard.
Yeah, all the people pleasing and all the things that come along with that. But I did want to I wanted to just share one thing, that I have learned through the years about setting boundaries. And this is a real new lesson for me. Look, at my big age, I'm just learning about setting boundaries.
Yes.
And I would say over the past 6 months, really, that what I've learned. I was always the go-to person. Now, Kim will get it done. People they just know that Kim will get it done, and you become that person.
Yep.
But what I realized about being the go-to person is you really do get something from that yourself.
Yeah.
You are looking and seeking something.
Maybe
so that
approval.
Yeah, approval, validation, all those things. And so I think that's why it's so hard. It really isn't about the other person when you're setting boundaries. It's about what are you getting from it.
Right.
And then
but weren't you exhausted all the time?
I was.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So you might have been getting something, but then it became to the detriment of you.
Yeah.
So it almost became, you got what you got, but then it was killing you too.
Yeah.
So,
but as I begin to love myself,
yeah,
and then I began saying no, but I didn't look for other people to respect my boundaries. I needed to respect my own boundaries. Look, I'm looking at the wrong camera. I need to respect my own boundaries first.
Yep.
Before I could expect somebody else to respect them.
No, and kind of like you, I've been on this path of healing and whatever. And I think leaving a job a couple years ago that was crazy intense, one of my favorite jobs I've ever had, but I definitely didn't say no ever.
Yeah.
And it was killing me.
Yeah.
Like it was, exhausting me. I put myself, I still would make it to the gym, but my food, everything was falling apart except for the job, right?
Yeah.
I did a really good job, but
Yeah.
at what cost? Me. So I got this new job and I have more time, and I've had a lot of reflecting time. And I think probably in the last couple years, I've done a lot of growth on that too. I still struggle too with boundaries, but I'm starting to see too that because I think sometimes people don't set boundaries because they're like, well, if I tell that person no, then they're not subconsciously going to want to be in my life.
Right.
And so you're like, well, I'll do whatever they want to do or whatever because I want them in my life.
Yeah.
But the real people who want to be in your life are going to be in your life whether you have boundaries or not.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And even with maybe even respect you more when you have boundaries.
Yes.
And so
they might be encouraging you to set boundaries.
exactly, because you can't be all to everybody else if you're not to yourself. You have to take care of yourself first. So it's been a growth. I mean, I think we're kind of on this similar path. A lot of my friends are. Maybe it's the age.
I think it is.
This age.
They talk about like a midlife crisis, but it's not. It's a midlife awakening. You start realizing your own worth.
Yeah.
And you start setting those boundaries.
You have to. You have to. And I know you're going to talk about there's 5 key points we wanted to talk about. I think you're going to take the lead on that today.
There are 5 key kind of signs that will trigger you and let you know I might need to start setting some boundaries.
Yes.
So saying yes when you really want to say no.
I've definitely been guilty of that.
Doing things and then feeling resentful that you had to do it. Avoiding people who drain you. I need to get better handwriting. Avoiding people who drain you.
So like what that means is, right, like you're still choosing to spend time with people who are sucking things from your life and not giving anything to your life?
Yep.
Okay.
And so if you're feeling that, then you're probably not surrounded by the right people or having boundaries with them.
And maybe those people are just, they say sometimes people are seasoned people. Maybe it's just a seasoned person.
Yeah, sometimes you outgrow. You truly do kind of.
Doesn't mean they're bad.
It does not mean they're bad. It just means you're in a different place.
Yeah, that's
all.
okay too.
You feel responsible for other people's feelings, and you have no time for yourself.
Yeah.
So those are the top 5 things to kind of ask yourself.
Yeah.
And that should alert you that you really need to start setting boundaries with people. And I know I was so guilty of the resentful piece of things. I didn't really consciously realize it for many, many years. But I would just, because I was that go-to person, just doing everything for everyone and then resenting it.
Yeah.
Resenting not just it, resenting people, people that I love. Oftentimes, sometimes, sometimes it wasn't family. It could be in the workplace, it could be anywhere. But just feeling, like the victim, feeling like other people were doing things to me, but in reality, I was doing it to myself.
One of the things I remember one time we've talked about this before, Kim and I had plans to go to IKEA. And I think this was probably early in your journey.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, because I was still sick all the time.
Yeah. This is probably like your healing journey.
Yeah.
And I remember we were going to IKEA. We both took the day off. She has to drive to get to me, and then we would drive to IKEA. Like an all-day girls trip. And she called me that morning or texted me that morning and said that she wasn't going to be able to make it. She wasn't feeling good. And she had been sick, so I knew. And I remember feeling sad because I was
disappointed.
Disappointed because I was looking forward to spending the day with her. But maybe that's right around that was before actually, that was probably a few years ago, but where I was starting to grow too, because the old Shannon would have said, well, darn, I understand, and then be a little sad, and I probably wouldn't have done anything all day. I would have just taken my day off, and I was already dressed and everything, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to go. And I drove to Charlotte and went to IKEA by myself.
Yeah.
And although I was disappointed because it's not fun.
Right.
I wanted to spend the day with my friend, but I also realized that she was sick and she needed her time. But your decision taught me that, hey, just because she said she couldn't go today had nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
But she was putting herself first. And that was a good lesson for me.
Right, and that was around the time that I was starting to put myself first.
So thank you for that, because
You're
for me,
welcome.
I never was, I would do things. I don't know about back then. At some point, I still would have went to IKEA even though I felt terrible. I would have went. I probably would have had a great time. But again, at the detriment of myself.
Yes.
When I could have just stayed at home or should have just stayed at home, I still would have went.
Yeah.
So that was a good lesson for me to help me look at myself. Well, we're still the best of friends, even though she didn't want to go, couldn't go to IKEA. I mean, it had nothing to do with our friendship.
Right.
So it was a learning.
Yeah.
It was learning for me too.
Yep. Absolutely.
And I know
thank you for sharing that. That's good.
And I remember years ago when I lived in another city in North Carolina. One day, I came outside and there was a book on my porch, and it was called Boundaries. Clearly, I had none. She was a friend that recognized. And I remember feeling not any kind of way with the book, but I read the first chapter and it talked about this woman who did the PTA, did this, did that, did this, did that. And that was me. I did it all. I baked everything. I was working. I was doing it all.
Yeah.
And it was killing me. And reading about another woman doing the same things I was doing, and she was like, I'm so exhausted. I haven't had time for my marriage, for my husband, for me, and she was becoming resentful to all the people that she was helping, but she loved to help people, but she was becoming resentful, like you said. And so that was me, and that was, that was over 10 years ago I read that book. So I've been on this journey for a long time.
A long time.
And there was another book I read. It was called When Pleasing You Is Killing Me. Because after reading that book, I was like, well, shoot, I do have an issue.
Yeah.
I got to get myself together. And you really read that book, and that book was like, oh, my God, when pleasing you is killing me.
Yeah.
And it was so crazy but I think we talk about all the time, going back to your childhood and all those things that happened.
Yeah.
And now it's so powerful to be able to say no and know that these people still want to be in your life.
Yeah.
Because I think somewhere subconsciously, it's like if you don't do these things, you're not going to be looked at some kind of way at work.
People not going to love you. They're not going to respect you. They're not going to whatever.
Yeah, I don't even really know what my thought process was behind it. But now that I'm older and wiser, you realize, like, no. Because the people who love you and want to be in your life, they want you to have boundaries because they don't want you to be all up on their space all the time either.
Exactly. And as you start setting those boundaries over the last 6 months, as I've really started doing that, it hasn't done anything except make me happier. People have honored the boundaries that I have set.
You haven't had anybody give you any kind of pushback?
I really have not this time. I really have not. Or maybe
when you say this time, has it been that way before?
Yes, I have tried to set boundaries in the past, and I have gotten pushback.
And so when they gave you pushback, do you feel like you weren't strong enough to stick with those boundaries, where now you'd be like, peace out. Like
Well,
you would.
that and also, I thought that I had learned the lesson about boundaries. So sometimes you can learn the lesson about boundaries in one area or with one person, but you really haven't gotten to the core of why you do that.
Right.
So you'll do it again in another situation. So like people, you go from one job into another job looking for a different situation, but it's not the job, it's you.
It's you.
Yeah,
because you can run into different relationships, run into new opportunities at work. But if you don't get that core, find out what that core reason is why you're doing that, you're not going to be able to outrun it, right?
Because, I really thought I had learned the lesson about setting boundaries. But when I started in my current job and then also got involved in the community and other things.
You were busy. Girl,
Man,
you were busy.
My life was so packed, and my children, when it comes down to saying no time for yourself or for other people. My children were telling me that, I wasn't spending time with them. And, I was really becoming
and your children
a workaholic.
Are grown, so
my
for
children
them to say that you're not spending much time with your kids when they're grown anyway.
I probably wasn't giving them any time,
And that was,
I've talked
and they
before.
missed you. They missed you.
Yeah. It was. They weren't being harmful or hurtful in it. They were speaking from their heart.
They want to spend time with you and laugh with you. And that's the thing, right? You got to do more than work.
Yeah.
You got to do more than volunteer in the community.
Yeah. Well, my family should be first.
Exactly.
So it shouldn't be my work first.
No.
But it took me a while. I was in that cycle for a long time. And I actually spoke to someone recently who I was at one of the clubs that I belong to. And I saw her there and she was talking with me and I thanked her just like you just did now. I saw her at an event recently and I said, when I was at this other meeting and I was doing all these things and we were talking and we had a conversation about, just basically taking on too much and like, what is the cost for you to do all of these things that I was involved in? And so sometimes you can just plant a little seed with people.
Yep.
And I didn't immediately start making changes, but I thought about that as I got really rigid about setting boundaries for my own life.
Which is really good, to be able to do that. And I've seen people over the years say no, and just say no. Like I think for me it would be like, well, no, I can't do that because I've got debt. Well, you don't need to tell people that. You just say. Another great line is, it's not going to work for my schedule.
Yeah.
It's not going to work for my schedule tonight. And you might be going home to paint your nails. I mean, like, it doesn't matter what you're going to do, but that just doesn't work for me. You don't have to explain yourself.
You don't. And, I can't remember. They told me what they put on their calendar so that if someone asked them to do something, like I don't know if they said they were busy or something, but they said it really doesn't. I'm busy taking care of myself. So I don't have to explain to you what busy means. It's just I'm busy taking care of myself. So you don't owe anyone an explanation for why you aren't able to do something.
And I think with work sometimes we get look, I have friends that are entrepreneurs. I get that. That's a whole nother that's a whole it's hard to compare with that because that never stops.
Yeah.
And I ran a business. It wasn't mine, but I ran it. And so I think can understand from that level.
Yeah.
But I think it's important, like at work, to have boundaries. Like, get off at 5 o'clock. They didn't hire you to work why are you responding to emails at 11 o'clock at night?
Yeah.
I mean, I've been totally guilty. I've had my board chair one time said, stop working.
Yeah.
Because I was sending emails at 9 o'clock.
I've done that to people on my team.
And she was like, stop working, Shannon. It was like a Friday night. Like, I shouldn't have been working. And like, really, you go to work when you need to get there and get the work.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're going to have to work a little after hours or on the weekends. Like, that just happens.
Yeah.
But to make it a constant norm in your life is so unhealthy.
Yeah.
It's so unhealthy. And even if you are an entrepreneur, you've got to have you time, family time. You've got to have that downtime away from your work because life is about fun too, right? You got to have some fun.
And you know what I've realized as I've set those boundaries and I started focusing more on myself and then I started building in the fun and doing the different fun things.
You have been doing a lot of fun.
I've been doing a lot of fun. I've been living my life and making plans. I have more plans for things coming up. But there was a time in my life when I was so overwhelmed with life that all of the things that should have been fun weren't fun. So family things.
Did it feel like work?
It felt like one more thing to do.
see. Yeah.
And I was feeling that way about things that should have been a joy to my life. But what I have found is that as I've set those boundaries, I am loving my life and I have more time and more willingness to be there for other people. So I'm wanting to spend more time with. I am spending a lot of time with my children now. I'm doing a lot better. I'm doing.
But how fun is that? You've got grown girls. You can have fun, and you've got a great son-in-law too. And to be able, I mean, you just went to a concert with your son-in-law. That is so cool.
We just went to see Prince on the big screen.
Oh yeah.
We keep the Prince going.
That's right. You'll have to tell me about that after. And my son's coming home today actually for spring break, and I'm really excited to see him. And I've even seen him set boundaries. Because, as a mother of growing children, you have to let go. Yeah. You have to let go. And it's not easy. As you know, my son, my son is an only child. And I gave everything to him, obviously. And so, he's growing up. And he should be flying and doing all the things. And I want all that for him. But I want to still spend time with him.
Yes.
And
because you love your baby.
I do. But, it's like, you're coming home for a week and he's got all these plans, which he should. I did at his age. And I'm like, well, are we going to spend any time together? I asked him that. And he was like, well, Mom, on Sunday, when I come home, that would be great.
Yeah.
But he's not even getting home till 7:00 at night. And so I didn't say anything, right? I'm thinking it. But then I'm like, well, no, I'm going to enjoy that moment with him. So we're going to have dinner and whatever when he gets back from his, and then let him live his life. Let him live his life. But seeing your own children put those boundaries that you probably struggled with at that age is kind of a cool thing because
it is.
He knows himself, He knows himself, so it's kind of good. But having said that, with him coming home, I love to bake.
Yeah.
And I always make chocolate chip cookies when he comes home, and I still might make them throughout the week. But yesterday I was so tired from traveling and just everything. I stopped at Nothing Bun Cakes and bought him Nothing Bun Cakes because he loves those too. And I thought I could cook or bake for 3 hours, or I could just go spend a little bit more money, have my time, be able to do what I want to do, and still have that same outcome of welcoming him home with something that he loves.
Yes.
So I'm learning too.
You are learning. And it is a big thing. I think, especially when your children set boundaries with you, and even if you feel some type of way about them setting boundaries with you. Sometimes I do. Sometimes I do. But then sometimes I'll catch myself and I'll just smile because I'm like, I'm proud of them,
Of course.
Yeah, because I'm like, hey, that's kind of
But they're getting it 20 years before we did, which is great. Imagine how their lives are going to be.
Yes.
Maybe they saw us. Maybe they saw us. But maybe
I'm not doing that.
But maybe they saw us working on ourselves.
Yeah.
And seeing the subtle changes that we've had.
Yeah.
And they picked up on it.
Yeah. I can do that too. Yeah.
Right? And now they're stronger and they're going to have better lives because they're not going to let themselves be a punching bag. They're not going to let themselves.
No.
And the key is let yourself, right?
Yes.
It's not, people are going to only take what they can get from you.
Yep. It's not about other people. It's about you.
Yeah. And they're going to take until you say no.
Yeah, and they're not bad people.
No.
Most of them. They're not bad people. It's human nature. Look, if somebody's just going to keep giving, then you just keep taking.
Why wouldn't you?
It's not their fault. You just giving it all away.
No, you're right.
So it's your responsibility to take care of you, not someone else's.
Why do you think it's hard? Do you think it has the fear of disappointing others? Do you think that's what it comes to, or do you think it's a combination of maybe that and then whatever that core issue is that you're trying to fill?
I know for me, when I was growing up, then I would oftentimes be told I was selfish. So I think for me, it was, and I can be focused on self. It's just a different way of saying it. But selfish has a negative connotation.
But focused on self, I was going to say, is that necessarily bad?
It isn't bad. And I think what you do have to figure out the balance between focusing on yourself and focusing on other people. But I think because of what other people perceived as selfish, so you could say our children, they set boundaries. We could interpret that as you're being selfish.
Right.
But with our growth, we say, oh, no, good. You're setting boundaries, even though it doesn't serve me.
And it might feel some kind of way
Right.
initially, right?
Even though your boundary doesn't serve me.
So maybe that's why it's selfish, because they're not getting what they want.
Because they weren't getting what they wanted from me. So then I was told I was selfish.
When in fact, you were just taking care of yourself.
Yes. And so what I then.
So that set you up for a lifetime
of telling myself that I was selfish. So what am I going to do when I think I'm selfish? I'm going to do everything to prove I'm not selfish, which means give all of your stuff away to everybody else.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. Yeah, for sure.
So it wasn't until I began saying, no, I'm going to take care of myself. Because what happened was that I did start resenting everybody, and then I just kind of shut down.
Do you think you felt like maybe you were responsible for other people's feelings and kind of the outcomes of their life or what they wanted?
Yep.
Yeah, and I'm confident I was the same way.
Yeah.
And you just, before you know it, you're depleted.
Yeah. We are not responsible for someone else's feelings. Now, in relationship with people, you need to be mindful of people's feelings. And respectful of that and honor that. However, how somebody responds to something that you have done for yourself is not your problem. You know, you can talk about it, you can, you can empathize with them, but the reality is you get to make those choices for your life. And if someone else doesn't like that choice, you don't have to take ownership of that.
No.
You don't
have a conversation, though, right? If it's a relationship that you value.
The point is getting to the point where you can say that and you really feel it. Like you really don't just go and say you feel that and then, think about it for the next week about how you did something that somebody else didn't like.
Right. And one thing, for people that struggle with setting boundaries, I mean, Kim and I clearly have struggled with setting boundaries and still struggle to some degree.
Yeah.
I don't think it would encourage you just look at some of the things that might make you feel a little off and maybe set one new boundary a week.
Yeah.
Don't try to overhaul your life. I mean, I think we've been working on ourselves for 10, 12 years, a long time. And and we're just now getting to that, I think in a lot of ways.
Yeah, no, I told you, the last 6 months for me, where I've really started being vigilant about the boundaries.
Where I'm just oh my gosh, I'll listen to a song and I'm like, oh my gosh, I've been afraid. I don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah.
It's little things like that. I think the work that I've done, and then you hear a song or something that triggers you and you're just like, whoa, why? I just, you just want to be free from all of that.
Yes.
And the only way you can do that is if you do keep yourself first and be mindful of that.
Yeah.
I think it's harder when you're younger because, especially when you have children.
Yeah.
Because just as a mother, a father, right? We put our children first. We just do. It's just nature. I don't know. We just do. We're supposed to, right? You're supposed to put your children first.
But you know what? One of my daughters recently, I was talking. I'll say Sierra. I'll say my oldest daughter because it's nothing negative, and it actually was a key moment. I learned a lot from her.
She's pretty awesome.
Yeah, she's pretty awesome. She was getting married, and I think it was at her bridal shower. And I said something about just kind of, as you get married, don't lose yourself in that. Make sure that you're still, taking care of yourself. And, that's something that I don't think she said it in that moment, but later she said that she was going to do that. That wasn't something that she wasn't going to do. And I think it was from seeing me do that. I think she did learn that. And she has very good boundaries. I've learned a lot from her. We bump heads sometimes because of them, but I've actually learned a lot from her because she's really honest.
And she probably won't have the same struggles that you've had.
She won't have the same.
Maybe she saw some of them and said, I'm not going to do that. And then you're learning from her, and she probably learned from you too. So
yes.
That's kind of a beautiful thing, though.
It is a beautiful thing.
And that's good for her because, she's so talented, and I know she loves to bake and all those things. And it's I think a lot of my friends in my age group are guilty. You get married and then it becomes all about being a wife and all that.
Mom,
and then you forget about yourself. And that's not good for your relationship either.
It's not good for your relationship. It's not good for your children. It's not good for yourself.
Because you're two separate people with two separate lives, right? That come together that still need to live your lives.
Yeah.
But you're together. It doesn't change that. But that's what attracted you to each other anyway, because you have two separate lives
Yes.
that just happen to be together, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's you don't want your partner to not
Yeah.
be who they are, or
Yeah. Your life can't be about another person,
no,
and you can't be making the decisions for your life that are all about what the other person needs in their life.
no,
You have, your life to live, and it's your responsibility to make sure that you live it. And as you do that, you will be there for your children, for your spouse, for whomever, your friends. You will be much more present for them and have
happy.
joy
Yeah, and
in
be
your life.
happy. And the
Yeah.
thing is, like, right, you
Yeah.
have to compromise a little bit, right, with your
Yeah.
children and your
Of
spouse and
course.
some of your
Yes.
friends. I might want, Outback, and you might want Mexican. I mean, it might be
Right.
something simple like
We're
that,
not talking about that.
but you have to be able to compromise a little bit,
Yes.
right?
Yes,
Because
yes, you do.
relationships are all about that, right?
Yes.
So it's
Yeah.
not so black and white.
Yeah.
If you live your life black and white like that, I don't know
Yeah.
that you'd even have a
No.
relationship
They're
or a
like,
healthy
then you
one.
really are selfish.
Then you really are selfish. But
Yeah.
if you are doing everything that you're
Yeah.
doing to sacrifice for your partner or your children or
Yes.
whatever, and you never do anything for yourself,
Yeah.
you're going to be miserable. You're going
Yeah.
to be so unhappy. Who wants to
Yeah.
live like that?
No, and that's, for myself, I think I lived so many years where I came to a conclusion when I kind of woke up, that I was living like a fake life in a lot of
Yep.
ways. Because you're living life through this mask because you're trying to please
hmm
everybody in your life, and you're not being authentic to who you are. So the version of yourself that other people see isn't even who you really are.
Right,
I
right.
think now, the version that people see of me now
My laughing
is
friend Kim.
I laugh more now than I ever used to. I think I had lost a lot of the laughter. I just was not happy.
I'm sure I told you this years ago. God, it was probably 12 or 13 years ago. It was a summer after some really major things happened in my life. And kind of the same thing. I laughed so much that summer, my cheeks hurt. My cheeks hurt. I remember telling
Yeah.
probably you, my cheeks hurt. I don't remember smiling or laughing that much. And I think I probably was living the
Yeah.
same way. And I was so, so unhappy. But it was nobody else's fault. It was
Mm-mm.
really mine.
Yeah.
It was really mine. And,
Yep.
it just, I don't
Yeah.
ever want to be that girl again. I don't
Mm-mm.
even know her anymore, I don't
No,
think.
me neither.
I mean, it was so long ago. 12, 13 years. I don't even know that girl.
Yeah.
Don't even know her. And I don't want to know her.
Yeah. Well, but the one thing I've said too is that I thought about myself. I saw a picture of myself like in high school, as I was going to go along with this experience, and I saw myself, and I've always loved the makeup and the products and all that stuff, but I had all my makeup done, and I just looked like I was just looked put together and everything, and then through the years I had lost that, and then now I've got that back. But during the growing experience, I looked on that and I was like, man, where is that girl? Like, where is that girl
Yeah.
who loved?
So you would look at the younger version of yourself
Yeah.
during that time and not even identify with her anymore.
Yeah, no, I wasn't that girl.
No.
I was not.
That's crazy. I was
had
the
lost
same
that.
way.
Yeah, but now I found her.
Yeah.
I found her, and even more her.
I love it. Well, and I feel the same way. I mean, I'm just in such a different place.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
it's like yesterday I was out getting things for my bedroom, redoing my bedroom. And I'm so excited about redoing my bedroom. It's like, it's been a long time coming, been doing a little bit here and there. And then, I don't know, the last few weeks, I'm just like, I'm doing it. I'm just
Yeah.
going to do it. I'm not going to do it in little pieces anymore. I'm just getting it done so I can love that space.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it goes back to, just loving who you
Yeah.
are and where you're at. And nothing's perfect, right? But
Yeah.
it's a different place. Just a
And I
different
think
place.
some of the things that you can do as you start getting to the place where you recognize you need to set boundaries, and then you start figuring out, okay, where do I start? So some of the things you can do, you can start identifying what your non-negotiables are. What are your non-negotiables? Do you have any non-negotiables you've identified when you're interacting with people? Lines that you just don't want to allow other people to cross or to allow yourself to cross.
Okay, you're just saying like in just general?
Yeah. When it comes to setting boundaries, I think about, like you talked before about the not working or sending the emails at night. So that is a non-negotiable that I have started for myself. Now I have a demanding job, so there will be exceptions
Right, of course.
when I must work an evening or I must work a weekend to get a project or a deadline met.
Right.
However, a non-negotiable for me is in general that I am not working on the weekends. And sometimes I have to be very, that internal feeling you get that says that you need to be doing something, you have to squash it. Yeah, you just squash it. Because that is a non-negotiable for me, that the weekend is my time.
Mm-hmm.
Now I do things with a podcast, but that's a love project. It's
Yeah,
mine.
it's fun.
And so that is a non-negotiable I've set for myself.
Well, and it's funny you say that because when I was in my previous job, because it was so demanding, I remember saying to someone, I had to like tell myself so I wouldn't work all the time because we did do things on the weekends sometimes in the evenings. No one is going to die
Yeah.
if I don't work on the weekend, unless it was an event, of course. I mean, still nobody was going to die, right?
Right.
And this one executive from a large company in Raleigh said, Shannon, and if they do, what are you going to do about it? And I really thought about that extra piece that he added to that statement.
Yeah.
Because the reality is I'm not a doctor. I'm not a nurse. I'm not a mental health, psychologist or someone that's really helping people.
Yeah.
And that people could die.
Yeah.
Like nobody is going to die with the work that I do. And so that was that statement that helped me for a lot of years.
No,
because,
that's a good statement.
Right? Is anybody going to die if you don't get something done?
Right.
Probably
No,
not. And so
no.
that really helped me. And then what are you going to do about it? Nothing. I mean, you're not going to do a thing about it.
Yeah.
And
half the time, somebody else didn't even ask you to do it. You did it. You did it because you wanted to do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And just, And I think that's a beautiful boundary. And I also think before we close, as you do start setting those boundaries, try not to worry about the backlash.
Yeah.
It is going to be uncomfortable when you first start setting boundaries. It was for you. It was for me. It still is sometimes because I don't want to hurt people's feelings.
Yeah.
I mean, I get in my feelings or whatever. But at the end of the day, you have to think you're gonna hurt yourself. And really, if someone's got an attitude or gives you, they shouldn't be in your life anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, they're maybe not even really your friend.
Yeah.
So right, do you want those people in your life?
Being clear and direct too when you're setting those boundaries with people.
And it's
don't sugarcoat it. Don't try to kind of camouflage it and stuff. Be direct about what you need from people.
Right? And it's again, like Kim said earlier, it's not selfish to set boundaries.
Yes.
It's not.
Yes.
Putting yourself first is the most important thing. And there's something I do want to read as we close.
Yeah.
I thought this was kind of, I don't know, it just the topic. So loving, and this is from a gentleman, Lewis Huckstep, and he's on Instagram and love his stuff. But loving yourself means choosing yourself. It sounds selfish, but it's the most selfless thing you can do for yourself and others. You can only help others become their highest versions when you are yours first. You can't fill from an empty cup. And when you constantly sacrifice yourself, you're not even helping yourself. How can you help others? Ask yourself that. It's not normal to bury yourself down on the pressures of expectations of others, because that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Reclaim your power through choosing yourself. As you put yourself first, your energy becomes powerful. You become empowered and confident. Don't expect the person who you keep sacrificing their every need to understand you.
Yeah.
They are on a completely different frequency. But don't be surprised when people who want to become their highest versions of themselves gravitate towards you, because now you're a vibrational match to higher reality.
Yeah.
Choose yourself without any guilt. You're worthy of the best.
I love that.
Isn't that great?
Yes.
I thought that was
Love
great.
it.
So we'll have to reach out to him and tell him thank you.
Yeah.
But when I saw that this morning, I was like, I've got to read that because it just kind of summed up everything what we were talking about. And so just try to do one new boundary a week.
Yeah, just one thing.
And it's a constant thing. You got to do it every day, right?
Yeah, and tell us what you struggle with in the comments. What things, what's difficult for you when it comes to setting boundaries.
Definitely. Well, I enjoyed this talk as I do everyone. So the next episode we're going to be, I'm like looking at my notes here. Kind of, it does go back to boundaries, really, Kim. It's balancing career and personal life, right? I mean, boundaries and all that. So how do you do that effectively? Because the struggle is real.
Yeah.
The struggle is real.
Yeah.
But just wanted to thank you for joining us. Look forward to your support. Follow us on Spotify and YouTube. Subscribe and join us next time.